Huh. Well, that's cool. All right. Well, I wonder if that's for Canada too. That sucks. Recorded in the Rob Christensen Radio Network's socially distant studios, it's the Film Friday 5-ish with your host, Rob Christensen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my Film Friday 5-ish. I'm Rob Christensen, co-host of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, and this is usually my 5-minute combination of hot takes on stories of the day. But this time it's going to be a little different. It's probably going to go a little longer than 5 minutes. In part because we've got a bit of a big story to react to. But before we get into that, I just want to shamelessly beg for a like, a subscription, and don't forget to ringy-ding-ding that bell. Anyway, everybody, where are we here? As you may be aware, Warner Brothers and their investment partners have decided that Wonder Woman 1984, which has been pushed, it was supposed to be out in June, if memory serves, or maybe even earlier, maybe May. It got pushed and pushed and pushed back, and it is now going to actually, they're sticking to their opening date of Christmas, December 25th, but they're also at the very same time going to be releasing it on HBO Max, but not here in Canada. So that's going to come up. But with this in mind, though, I thought instead of me just kind of rambling on, one of my colleagues in this YouTube film kind of comment space, Cody Brockopp from the Brockopp Side, we had been going back and forth on Facebook Messenger last night about this, and we figured, what the heck, let's do a show together and we can share our own thoughts on this. So anyway, the Brockopp Side, he's a film lover, and his channel is for film lovers, people who live and talk and buy a lot of movies. Anyway, so with that done, let us welcome. Oh, wait, let me make sure the space is welcoming. With that done, let's get a big round of applause for Mr. Cody Brockopp.
Woo!
And a wave. Cody, thank you so much for coming on to my little corner of YouTube. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I was enjoying our back and forth last night as we were going through the implications, but I'm really glad that we got you here live to talk about this. We are recording live to tape, folks. Listen, I'm going to jump right into it, man.
Okay.
You saw the story. What was your first reaction?
So when I first found out that they were going to put Wonder Woman in both the theater and on HBO Max, I thought it was kind of interesting. I wasn't surprised so much that they were putting it on HBO, but the fact it was going to be in theaters and HBO Max at the same time, it was like, okay, that's an interesting move, because that hasn't really been done quite yet. So I think it's just part of the experiment phase. So I think they're going to see like how many people are going to be going to the theater versus how many are going to stream it. So I thought, okay, this is just part of Warner Brothers experimenting, testing the waters. Whether people are going to go back to the theater just yet, or what the situation's going to be for a while.
Okay. Oh, I never even thought of it that way. I really did. I thought kind of Tenet was sort of the, hey, this is the experiment. And it kind of showed that, unless these, like right now, the public isn't feeling safe, but you're absolutely right. They have an experiment, a real experiment, theater open, in X market.
Mm-hmm.
They know where their downloads are going. They know where their streaming's going. They'll be able to pinpoint exactly how much money they did not get in the theater.
Yeah.
Do you think, Cody, that may actually, that this will drive any subscriptions to HBO Max?
Well, considering it is Wonder Woman 1984, so it's a big tentpole movie, you know, the last Wonder Woman movie directed by Patty Jenkins, it was a big success. People, pretty much loved it for the most part, so it's a highly anticipated movie. So I do think it would drag or bring in a good subscriber base to it. A lot of brand new subs that like, oh, I can see this new Wonder Woman big DC Comics movie in the comfort of my own home, and all I gotta pay is $15 a month, and I got all this other stuff. So yeah, I think it would definitely draw in some brand new viewers as well, even if they just, sign up for the 2-week free trial just to see that.
Yeah.
I think it definitely would at least draw plenty of attention to the platform, which is what they really want.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think something I was reading is there's an ownership stake in the United States between HBO Max and Warner Brothers. Like here in Canada, HBO Max is like, I can see HBO Max content, but it's through a local cable provider, or like a Canadian cable and internet provider's bundle of online stuff. We call it Crave, and you can get HBO and Showtime and all the other nonsense within that online bundle. But it's not like whoever's paying HBO, I'm not paying them. Whereas Disney Plus, I'm watching, my Disney Plus money goes to Disney Plus Direct, So in this way, they can kind of go, well, we're taking in all the money. At least we've got that. Does that make sense? Or what do you think about that? If I was clear at all.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, Wonder Woman's not going to be exclusively available to every single place that HBO Max is available due to, the situation where cinemas are open and stuff. So yeah, I feel like it could be kind of that's probably part of why you can't see the movie in Canada, like you mentioned, because it's not like people can just sign up for HBO Max and just boom, here's my $15 a month directly to you guys. So I guess it sounds like there's a lot of middlemen in places like Canada where they're not going to have it. So, but they are still planning to release it theatrically in Canada, right? Though
that's correct. If there are any theaters open, because much like the rest of the world, we here in Canada, Cody, we're going through a similar second wave spike, right? Yeah. So it's and here in Manitoba, do my best not to be political, even though I'm quite political. We're like the North Dakota. Manitoba has become the North Dakota of Canada. It really outrageous numbers. Here, our premier, much like a governor, similar to a governor, similar but not the same, we've gone back into a for all intents and purposes a lockdown situation. And I got to admit, Cody, I do not see theaters being open on Christmas Day. So there's a part of me kind of wondering if on the side they're going to be doing a deal in Canada, because and I wanted to ask you about this, but for me, I'm because I've started this channel, I won't do it. But my first thought is, F it, I'll bootleg it, because it's going to be streaming, right? But I won't do it. Yeah, but if I thought of it, how many Canadians and people in other, so I'm not sure how effective a strategy this is, but that's just me going on a rather unique tangent. What are you buying any of that, or?
I think that's also part of what the experiment's going to be too is seeing how many people are going to, pay for HBO Max, to see the movie, how many people already have it, and also how many people are going to pirate the movie on, 123 ABC 3movie freemovies.com /
whatever.
totally not malware, blah, blah, blah. So I think that could. So I think, after they see, how many people are going to go out and bootleg it, like all the, how many angry Canadians there are out there. I think if they see
Not that many, but
too many people pirating it, not giving them their money to see it, that could maybe hinder their strategy a little bit there with the, dual theatrical and streaming thing. So I think that's just kind of be like they're going to see what happens with that sort of thing. And also, there are other ways you can get around it. Like, I don't know how it really works, but, you could download VPNs on your computer and stuff.
Yeah.
So you could, pretend you're in US internet, get HBO that way. But, that might be a few too many hoops for some people to jump through.
I'm wondering actually, I feel like I'm paying for convenience, so my nose is out of joint because I'm being denied that convenience. Because I don't think the theaters will be open, and I don't know about yourself, but I am in my I'm in my early 50s. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to an effing theater right now. I'm going to wait until it's actually safe. Again, because I'm in my 50s. I'm like, why the hell would I do that? As he coughs. Okay, it's a weird kind of tangent on piracy, which I did not intend.
No, but I do think it is. Sorry to cut you off there, but I do think it is. It is an important part of the conversation because piracy is going to happen regardless of how everything turns out, and and I do think you are correct in that. I think most people that are over the age of 18 and have jobs and have monthly income are probably not going to go about pirating these type of things. So like most of the people that pirate are going to be like those edgy teenagers in high school. They're like, to heck with the corporations. I'm gonna just download it,
sticking it to the man.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would imagine. I guess we're going to continue down this, but I would imagine from I'm sure they look at piracy and they go, okay, a chunk of that is those folks, they have the money in their pocket, they just don't want to give it to us. But then there's going to be some of that piracy where they're like, we were never going to get a nickel out of them, ever. Yes, it's still breaking the law. They're not going, wow, look at all that lost revenue, except when they're talking to the United States Congress. Then it's like, oh my God, we're going broke. Okay, let's get back to the subject at hand, Wonder Woman. Okay, what do you think? Okay, do you think this will become the norm, or is this a one-off? Or maybe in your idea of an experiment, what do you think they need to see for it to become the norm? What's that point of failure where they go, we're never doing this again?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because, when you have these, $200 million blockbuster movies, the studios grant them this much money to make them because they're like, yeah, it's going to totally make 2, 3, 4 times that much in movie ticket sales alone. So, and you're not gonna get that with just putting it on HBO Max for free. They're not going to Disney Plus Mulan route of like, give us $30 on top of your $8 subscription. So it's not like you're
and you didn't even get to keep it.
Exactly. So it's not like replacing the movie ticket, so to speak. So I'm really not quite sure how these kind of streaming movies or the ones that made for streaming, like what Netflix does, how those really recoup their money. I think it all kind of comes down to how many new people it brings to the platform, how many more $15 monthly payments they get out of people.
Yeah.
So I don't see this becoming the norm immediately. I think it's something that they're gonna have to keep trying out and then see, like, is there another way we can go about this, video on demand on our platform where, we can have control over, where the money is going and the viewership is.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately time's gonna have to tell with that one to see how many people bought tickets, for the opening night on Christmas Eve versus who was gonna watch it in their living room. See, I think that's one of those only time will tell sort of situations, but as far as becoming the norm, I'm not positive on that just yet, especially for a movie that, was supposed to be in a theater where, it was going to make probably 800-900 million dollars worldwide.
Pre-COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I yeah, you're absolutely right. And in some ways, I guess my question was more coming from an angle, Cody, of I see a lot of these things happening where it's really, how is they putting it to Luke Lapointe? He's
Mm-hmm.
We met in the same place you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying to him, I look at some of these changes, some of these things that are happening are more just, this was a change that was already happening. You look at things like the Old Guard on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
a $70 million production. I will say, for those who do watch me, they know that I think Netflix is owed $50 million of that back. But yes, I have strong feelings on that movie. But that's what I'm wondering, is this what it looks like with the accelerator pressed down on changes that were already happening? This option to put a movie on streaming, that was kind of where I was coming from. But you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, 9 months ago, it was, nope, these things go to theaters.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the Old Guards, and obviously those budgets are going up, but the Old Guards can go to streaming.
Yeah.
These things are for the big money theater stuff. So yeah, no, I totally get that. What impact do you think that this is going to have on theaters? Because I got to admit, if I was just thinking out loud, Cody, if I was a theater owner, I'd be like, well, what do you mean you're putting that on streaming right away?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're going to negotiate a different deal with these folks, or like what's that impact?
Yeah, because they're not waiting 2-3 weeks to put it onto streaming or VOD like some other movies have. It's like
Or
you have
3
two
months.
options. Go to a building and sit in a seat, or watch it at home. So I feel like that's maybe not quite as favorable as far as the movie theater goes, because it's not like, it's not going to come out till January, but if I just, go to the theater, I can go see it right now.
Yeah.
So I do think that is going to have a bit of an impact. And, like a decent amount of movie theaters in at least the US have reopened. Most of them around me have. And I've actually been back a few times since they've reopened. And, overall,
I've noticed that.
Yeah, so overall, I am pleased with how these theaters are handling, the sanitizing, social distancing. I think they're doing an excellent job of that. So I don't think it's necessarily dangerous to go, but also I'm not like super germophobic and things like that. So kind of take that as you will. But yeah, but I feel like having that, 2 places to go versus theater versus streaming, it's like I feel like if people, some people that, don't have a lot of money to go to the theater, especially right now when, jobs are up in the air and things like that, they're probably going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to watch it on my TV at home versus, let's go out on Christmas Day to go see this movie. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. And it was something I brought up in our back and forth last night, but what impact is this on the studios? Like, just for those of you, my kind of theory on this was there's a capital pressure on the studio. It's like, we got to get this thing out. We can't be sitting on, it's not just $200 million. It's more like 350, 400 million when you factor in the marketing budget. So it's like, you know what, just get it out the door. Get it out the door. We'll get some of our money back. We'll find out what our losses are right away. We'll get this off our books. But yeah, like, what do you think? What do you think the effect is, Cody, on the studios in doing this?
Yeah, I mean, the studios right now are in a bit of a tight jam right now with having to pull pretty much their entire release slate for this year and even part of next year's, even when, they were pretty set in stone this year, like Black Widow was supposed to come out in May, so that's when they had more trailers, more posters, that's, when all the toys and merchandise were going into stores, and then, like, movie's still not out yet, but it's all on discount now in the, the clearance section at the stores and stuff. So it's kind of like, okay, the longer we, sit on these, big movies, the more money we're just going to keep losing because we have to keep putting in more and more money to market them to be like, okay, it's coming out in October. Oops, JK, it's coming out in December now. Hey, could the world just get a little better for a while so we can release this damn thing already?
Yeah, you're right. Like, I never even thought about that past marketing money. It goes bad.
Yeah, I mean, so they're
it's like
going to rack up. Yes, they're going to just keep racking up expenses to keep marketing this movie, on, online ads and things like that. So, it's just one of those things that they're going to have to deal with for quite a while, until it gets to the point where, they've had some movies that weren't meant to come out till next year anyway, where they, weren't like, hey, it's coming out here. Oops, now it's here, now it's here, now it's here, now it's here. So they're really just... I don't think any of these major movies, especially ones like this, are not going to make the kind of money they were supposed to, give like a year ago. So it's kind of like they're just trying to make the best of this situation. They're probably well aware they're not going to, bring in the kind of money that they would with, IMAX ticket sales and things like that. So, but I think something like this will be a bit easier once it's past the whole keep getting delayed, keep having to remarket it. So, there's going to be probably a little bit of some financial trouble there, definitely. Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, this movie is going to be just one of those kind of situations, kind of like Tenet, I think, was as well, where, it got pushed back. They had to keep remarketing it, I don't know, what goes into changing release dates for these movies, when they have to sit down and be like, okay, it's going to come out June 15th. Oops, never mind, we're going to put it out in August. And then, it comes out and doesn't make the kind of money it was supposed to social distancing and things like that. So yeah. I think it's just one of those things that they're just going to have no choice but to deal with and suffer some kind of a loss.
Take the hit. Do you think some of what's going on here, like one of my, many, I can't even call them theories, is it more thoughts, ideas? One of them was they're competing for entertainment dollars. And unlike even, let's say, well, we go back to 45 years ago, they had one competitor, television, which they had by the mid 70s had kind of figured out, oh, okay, they had discovered the blockbuster, Star Wars and Jaws. Changes everything, and they're like, this is our new model to make money. TV can't do this, full stop. Advance to now, I can't believe, you know what, I don't know about you, Cody, I've spent a ton of time on my Xbox, which before this got no love. Like, it was one of those things where I'm like, Oh my goodness, I bought a really expensive Blu-ray player. And now
Yeah.
it's like, what a genius thought. But one of the things I've been fascinated with, in all aspects of our lives under their current situation is how are our habits changing? How much is the studios going,
Hmm.
we have to get them back in the theaters just to remind them, because habits develop, and all of a sudden it's like, no, I
Hmm.
blew my entertainment money on Xbox 5 or PS5 and the Xbox, what is it, the L,
Hmm.
the X,
Yeah.
Xbox One X. What the?
Hmm.
I'm really not a fan of that name.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I, but what do you think? Like, as far as that habit stuff goes, and is some
Hmm.
of this just, yeah? What do you think about that habit? How our habits might be changing? How this
Oh
might
yeah.
be an attempt to push back on that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I
you and I
mean,
will always love movies, film,
hmm
but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, with the way the world has gone the last, 8 or 9 months or so, people are being stuck at home. They kind of have to resort more to stuff like Netflix and Hulu and stuff, and
mhm.
even more than they did. So they kind of have to entertain themselves more with things that they can just have in the comfort of their own home. So, it's kind of given a lot of attention to different streaming shows and movies, like
Yeah.
I just remember like how big Tiger King was back in, February, March. And I feel like
Which
a
was
lot of the,
insane.
yeah, I mean, I feel like you probably would have still, gotten some traction, but I feel like the fact that people were, stuck at home in quarantine, that kind of, it's like, oh, well, here's something to watch. Okay, Carol Baskin, yeah, yeah, okay, I like this. And, but also it's kind of like, how quickly did that sort of thing fall out of relevancy too?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, my thing about like watching streaming shows and movies and stuff, especially movies, is that when you're watching it, on your computer or on your Xbox or whatever, versus, watching it in a theater or like on a Blu-ray or a whatever,
Yeah.
it's the commitment to said movie. It's not the same because, when you watch it on like, HBO, you've got 1,000 other options you could be watching at that point. So if this one movie doesn't catch your attention within like, 2 seconds, because, everyone's attention span is, way down thanks to the internet, you can just be like, oh, boop, nope, on to the next thing. Or, let's watch Daredevil for the 85th time instead of watching this. Versus if you're in the theater, it's like you're probably not going to walk out of the movie 2 minutes in unless it's just absolutely atrocious. So I feel like, they kind of lets the audience have a little bit more of a bonding process with these movies when you see it in a theater like that versus, when you could easily pause it or skip parts or come back to it.
Or like you
Um,
said, you're screwing around on social media while the movie's on, which
exactly.
you're not doing in a theater, unless you're that guy. But in
Hmm.
your living room, everybody's that guy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point, Cody. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, and also, I'm guilty of, like I've done that myself. Not really paying attention, just scrolling through Twitter while whatever I'm watching is on, and and I also will try to catch myself once in a while. But it's like if I'm sitting in a giant dark room, I'm not gonna do that. My eyes are glued to the screen that I, paid money
yep.
to stare at for 2.5 hours. So and that's just something that comes with seeing a movie in the theater. And also, I'm a big supporter of the theater experience because some movies, it's like if you don't see them in the theater, you're really missing out on the true experience of the movie. I
Yeah.
think a prime example would be like Avengers Endgame from last year. you know Going to that movie opening night, with the final battle happening and all the heroes coming together, all those applause worthy moments, those would have not hit the same way at all if I just watched it on Disney Plus at home.
Yeah.
It's a different connection when it comes to theatrical versus that. And also, going back to what I said earlier about like, certain streaming shows and stuff becoming like, the hot topic for a little bit, then kind of
Yeah.
fading away. It's like, oh, whatever, on to the next.
The reality television of this time.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this was cool, but yeah, what's next,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the studios are trying to, they want to keep the theater, experience going, because, that's just not just because that's how, they make their money off of all these movies, but also people can connect with it a lot easier when it's, on a large screen like that. So, it's, I think once, like we mentioned earlier, it's really going to be a time will tell sort of thing, because, people still react to movies differently than they did, 10 years ago, thanks to the power of the internet and social media. So, once the movie drops, like, at midnight on Christmas morning, there's going to be like, 1,800 memes and, funny clips uploaded to Twitter and stuff for the movie. That'll be like, okay, I want to see where these all came from. So I think unfortunately we're just a little bit more hardwired to, consume content differently because of everything that's going on. So I don't think we're completely like, off the deep end with that. I think there's still the chance to start to come back to where we were, where it's like, we go see the big movies on the big screen, but then, smaller movies that you don't really necessarily need to consume on a big screen. You can just watch it on Netflix, like that movie, I think it was The Lovebirds with Kumail Nanjiani. It's like a romantic comedy like that. You don't necessarily have to go see in the theater unless it's, date night or something. So it's like, and like you said with the, television back in the 70s, the blockbusters, the Jaws, the Star Wars, they couldn't do that on TV. And I don't think they fiscally or financially could do that on streaming just yet, because they're not going to make the same kind of money off of that. So I think they're going to try to still do something like that. It's like, leave the big boys for the theater, and then maybe some of these smaller ones, let the streamers have it.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Cody. I feel the same way. I do think, and I don't know if it's going to be this, but I do think that there's a big haircut coming for theaters, in that you can only jam so many screens in these places. There's only so much content you can, where anyone would even dream of going, like kind of like what you're saying about The Lovebirds. It's why I don't care if you can put it in a theater. I'm not going to go watch it there. Maybe that's not, there'll still be some room for those kind of films, but sooner or later, that theater owner's like going, we're in too big a space. We just got too much square footage here. Let's scale it back, less screens, more concentrated theater experience content. And I want to kind of, and especially as, going back to the 70s, 4:3 aspect ratio, crappy, like one speaker in the thing, unless you're Rockefeller, you might have a stereo television. Whereas now, and I'm sure you do it similarly, Cody. I watch, the lights come down. I have good sound. I focus on the film when I want to watch a movie. And so I'm looking, and now I'll pick on the old guard again. You could at least kind of see what they were going for there, which was more of a big screen experience for, and it was definitely shot for Netflix. That was not like, it was a Netflix developed product. I don't think the way they shot that film, it would have ever looked good in a big theater. There is, I is being a smart ass with my co-host talking about, you got high key lighting, low key lighting, and there should be the Netflix mid key. Go
Mhm.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of like what you're talking about there. Netflix, they're not making movies for the big screen. They're basically just the next step in evolution for made-for-TV movies. Take that how you will. But I do feel like that's not to say all their movies are like that, but they have certain movies like Old Guard and other drama thriller movies like Triple Frontier from last year with Ben
Mhm.
Affleck and company, where
Yeah.
you probably could have gotten away with putting that in a theater, but I don't think it's a kind of movie that would have necessarily been a big hit as far as box office returns go. So I think it's one of those
It
things where
would
it's
have
like,
done better in the 80s.
yeah,
Like
and
it was a movie meant for a different time in theater.
yeah, and and talking about like the Old Guard and stuff, I personally still have not seen that movie, but from what I've seen and heard about it, it seems like the kind of movie that you could have put on a theater, but just because you have Charlize Theron as the main character doesn't mean people are going to automatically go see it. So it might not do well at the box office, but that doesn't mean it's a failure of a movie. So putting it on this, practically free way to watch it, depending on whether or not you have a subscription or not, kind of lets it have a different kind of life that a theatrical release like that couldn't. So those movies and those shows like Tiger King and stuff, where if those were released in a more traditional way, they probably wouldn't have the same praise and accolades or attention drawn to them like
Yeah.
that.
I don't think anyone was praising that. I think it was more like and here's a car wreck we will all watch now.
Pretty much, but that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with habits changing. It's like here's this movie, it's right in front of me. I'm just gonna watch that versus paying $12 to go see this other movie. So, which is why I'm not entirely positive. Like these big movies like Wonder Woman 84. I don't think they can have the same life on streaming like that because it's kind of the reverse situation, putting a theatrical movie on a small screen versus putting a smaller scale movie that you could throw in the theater, but you probably shouldn't put on Netflix. That'll do better that way. So
I couldn't agree with you more, and that comes to that leads me to this question, Cody. What do you think? What are movies going to look like? Are we going to do you think we're going to get less of these massive blockbusters, more of these sort of for streaming mid-tier action, and I really do mean going back to the 80s and the 70s, this sort of, a lower budget, heck, John Wick,
yeah.
Atomic Blonde, both made for $30 million.
Yeah, and those became massive successes too.
But
well, Atomic Blonde not so much.
yeah,
but,
yeah. Well, and I'm thinking Atomic Blonde was a perfect scale for a streaming service. Probably would have been, wow, what an awesome movie on a streaming service. But do you think what is the Wonder Womans, the Avengers going to look like? Are we going to see less of them as I just don't see the industry bouncing back to where it was pre-COVID. What do you think the new normal, the post-COVID normal is going to look like for these big tentpole movies?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. When it comes to these tentpole movies,
I ask a question with my statement.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to these, major tentpole movies like, your Avengers, your Wonder Womans, Batman, your Spider-Man, when it comes to those kind of movies, just because you throw a bunch of money at it doesn't mean it's going to make a bunch of money in return. It depends on what the audience's tastes are, and stuff like the MCU and, certain characters like Batman, Spider-Man, all of them, they're always going to attract an audience no matter what. So people will always find a way to see those movies, which is, I think, part of Warner Brothers' strategy with Wonder Woman is because people really want to see that movie because, the trailers blew them away and they like the first movie, so they want to see the continuation of that. So, they know that it's going to drag viewership onto the platform, so as far as like whether or not we're going to keep getting these kind of movies, I don't think they're going to completely stop or slow down to like a very minimal amount, but I do think we could start
We
seeing
still have
more
radio.
Yeah, so I think we could start seeing more mid-level, mid-budget movies, like your John Wicks and your Atomic Blondes, where, not a lot of money in them, but, they can make a lot of money in return, or, there's less of a financial stake in there. So
Yeah.
I think they will, maybe, place their bets on a few more movies like that. But, I think
100 million spread over 3 John Wick-esque. Or,
totally.
Yeah.
And I think it was Ben Affleck and a few other actors said that, in the future, once this is all blown over, movie theaters they're still going to be around, but they're going to be more geared towards the, big budget movies where they need the theater ticket sales and all that to recoup their money versus, these mid-level ones where they can just, sell it to a streaming service or put it on their own streaming service. So I don't think they're going to go away. We might not get as many like, blood shots and things like that where there's no real guarantee of an audience retention there.
Yeah.
But, it's like going back to the Marvel example, the MCU has solidified itself so deeply to this point that people are gonna see whatever they put out, which is not like me trying to talk down to those people because I'm one of those people myself. So
I go watch them.
Yeah. So there are always going to be those movies that people are going to go see, and if they can only see it, in a theater, for the standard 3 months until digital and Blu-ray, or if they got wait a couple weeks for it to see it on demand in their homes. There will always be traffic for those movies, but I do think they might slow down with some of these major budgets for not established properties, because I think they've really started to learn their lesson that it's starting to come back to bite them in a few different places, kind of like Bloodshot, which didn't really make a whole lot of money. Then again, it came out right before, the pandemic stuff hit, but it still wasn't successful financially, but we're still getting a sequel to that somehow, so I don't really know how that works, but
well, they obviously the math was right. What on that, you know what, lost my train of thought. Well, you know what, I tell you what, I'm gonna, folks, I think we're starting to come down to our final thoughts here. But before we do that, I do want to, listen, if you think, Cody or me, probably me, is full of crap, or there's something we missed, please comment down below. I am religious right now about coming back to those comments. You will get a reply, and I certainly will pass the stuff on to Cody that's specifically relevant to Cody. But yeah, comment down below. And of course, I really can't help myself. I'm going to shamelessly one more time beg for the like, beg for the subscription, and don't forget to ring the bell to get more of this wonderful, juicy content. And one more item, Cody.
Yeah.
Where can folks find you on? I know I'll have, and I'll put it again as a card here. To your channel, to your YouTube channel, but where else can we find you? Where do you like to connect with your fans, with the folks that you engage with, your community on the internet?
Yeah. Well, the big ones, of course, the YouTube channel, the Brockopp Side, but my two big social media platforms that I use are my Twitter, which is at Cody Brockopp. I don't use that one quite as much, but if you really want to connect, you can always try my Instagram, which is the Brockopp Side. You could type in my first and last name too if you want to. That'll pop up. That's really definitely a good way to connect. It's a very visual medium. Instagram is, which I like
Yeah.
a lot, and I get a lot of DMs from people and met a few good people that way. So, but feel free to use whichever one you'd like.
Okay.
But before we do wrap this up here, I just remembered
Yeah, I wonder what. Yeah,
a point that
throw down, man.
that we discussed a little bit last night, as far as like the financial stake in these movies, and I think I brought up that I think there's going to be more of a push for the merchandising side of things a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I drawn a blank on that.
Yeah.
To speak more to this.
Yeah, because when it comes to a comic book movie like this, they're gonna have, of course, the action figures, the T-shirts, the Funko Pops, and all of that. The Mountain Dew bottles with the logo on it and stuff. And so of course that's a lot of extra money for that movie for the studio. And so I think there might be a little bit more of a push like that, or like more putting out more sponsored content, maybe to partner with different websites and platforms and things like that. Because if you take a look at Stranger Things, one of Netflix's most popular shows, I don't know how much per episode they cost, but they got to be making quite a bit of money with the merchandising alone. Because you go to Target, you can get T-shirts, action figures, mugs. The Funko Pops. You can also buy Blu-ray copies of the first 2 seasons, and people are gonna consume that kind of stuff because, well, it's like, I like show, I want on T-shirt. I'm currently wearing a DC Fandom Batman T-shirt, which I think kind of proves my point there.
Yeah.
So I think there's gonna be more of an emphasis on that, and like, also, how else can we make money off these movies especially for these bigger movies that we were, planning on having a near $1 billion, or $500 million payday from. So I think there's going to be, it's kind of like YouTube, like the state of it right now, where, the, ad revenue may not be the greatest, but there's all these other ways you can support the people you enjoy watching, like Patreons and merch stores and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're just going to try
I am an Amazon affiliate, by the by. Links down in the description. Continue.
Really? See, I think they're just going to maybe try to diversify the profits for these different movies, even more than they did before. But I think ultimately, eventually we are going to get out of this whole situation one way or another. Things will slowly, but ever so slowly, get back to normal. And I think those people that want to go to the theater or want to see those big movies, they'll come back to them once they feel the world is safe enough to go back to. So I think it's just going to be a very slow recovery stage. So the studio is just trying to make do with what they can right now. And they haven't pulled every single theatrical movie from a theater release yet. So I think there's still hope. So we got larger movies from WB like Dune and the Batman, which are going to be potentially huge moneymakers for both, but they haven't said that they're going to be on HBO Max as well. So again, like we've mentioned here, it's all just experimental right now. This is a whole new world for everybody. So I think they're just trying to make the best of it, and they're just going to see what happens. So you said that in Canada, theaters aren't open whatsoever, and you don't have
in
HBO Max.
some jurisdictions. In some provinces, there are
in regards
that are
to
just straight up closed.
Okay, but in regards to where you are they open?
They are not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's my nose is out of joint because it's like, what about Rob?
Yeah.
Why won't the world revolve around me?
Damn you, Canada.
Well, and I, you know what? It's a minor inconvenience that goes directly to my life safety. So I really, it's that minor piss off, but I'm very fortunate. I live in Canada.
Is awesome.
Is well, I want to draw one distinction, which really makes a difference in one of the reasons why this is not happening in Canada. One thing is, just the way HBO is in Canada. It's not here as HBO. The brand is here, but they've used a local player, like they do in a lot of places in the world, a local player to, here, we'll license our brand, we'll license our content to you, and you do your thing. So all of a sudden, the deal they can cook in the United States, excuse me, terrible belch, the deal they can cook in the United States, that sounds so pejorative, I don't mean it in a bad way, but the deal they can make in the United States, it becomes incredibly difficult. And I suspect, although they've probably been talking about this for months, hey, how do we react and what do we do? It's just so much harder. They just don't have the time because there's too many deals you have to kind of unpack, right? And you know what? One of the things is the payoff is just nowhere near even the experimental payoff. You just, like, Canada is different enough that you're going to look at weird idiosyncratic markets that are, well, that's the way it worked in Winnipeg or Toronto, or but hard to, that's the way it'll work in the rest of the country. Because we're just so much smaller, which is way too much politics. This might get edited out. Even while I'm whining about it, because that's what I do. Heck, I'm a middle-aged white guy on the internet. What else am I gonna do? I'm gonna complain.
I've got family in Canada now. I kind of feel sorry for them a little bit.
All right. Any other final thoughts? And maybe what we'll do is we'll kind of do the outro, but if stick around, Cody, we can have a bit more. We'll keep this going, and maybe there's some hot takes we can pull out of that and throw in. But any other hot takes on this change? Any way you want to summarize your thoughts on this before we hit the outro?
Yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, it was definitely a surprise to have them announce that they're going to have the movie in the theater, but also on HBO Max simultaneously. There's not going to be a gap like I kind of thought they would. And I don't think it's necessarily all about, trying to see who's going to come out on top with this experiment, the cinema or the streaming platform. It's a matter of, they know people want to go to the theater to see these movies. People did go to see Tenet, not as many as there would have, pre-COVID, but, they understand the fact that these movies were built for the theater. So they just want to have the option for those people that, want to go see it, theatrically no matter what, versus those that can't, like, some people. So I don't really see it becoming the norm just yet, or at least maybe not in this exact format specifically. I think how things will go is there'll just be a smaller gap in between theatrical releases and streaming and VOD and, digital download, stuff like that. So I think just the gap will get a little bit smaller. So you have the option to go see in the theater, but then, if you don't want to, or if you want to go see it again, you can just wait, 3-4 weeks, and you can just, buy it for $20 on Amazon Prime or whatever, or wait for the Blu-ray like the real people do. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think these major $200 million blockbusters are going to go away anytime soon, but until things stop being a little crazy, they've got this small handful of these kind of movies that got to get out there somewhere before they start losing even more money. So, we'll see how everything goes, and who knows? It's going to be interesting. That's pretty much all I could say about it right now.
Cool. Well, listen, Cody, I want to, and like I said, stick around after the post credits. We'll chat a bit more.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm on one of those talk shows. Stick around. Goodbye, everybody. Anyway,
Everyone look under your seats.
you get squat. You get squat. You get nothing. But Cody, thank you so much for doing this with me. It's been really fun, and I hope we can do this again. This has been cool, and it's I don't like to get totally wrapped up in what everyone's saying, but it's also important to hear what other people are saying, to have that, because you've given me some takes that I wouldn't get just thinking about it myself. So I really appreciate that. And again, thanks so much for joining me. So, and like I said, stick around. I'm going to gray you out for a bit as I cue the outro in 1 second. All right, everyone. Again, thank you so much. If you made it to this point, thank you very much for coming. And you know what? Comment down below whether, tell us if you think we're full of crap, or if we've missed something, or you just agree with us, because I'm okay with love. And I think that's about it. Might be time to cue the outro, if I can find it. Oh, there we go.
I've been in your world.